I entered the project, I entered with an idea of what harassment was about and what the issues were, but I think I was very blind in a way because I didn't realize that it could be anyone in a room that you're standing in. We can all be victims. It can be any one of us. The Silent Voices Project is an awareness program. About 23 females my age, we got together and created the figurines depicting women and children, different types of abuse, and there's one statue that depicts a woman who was murdered by her sexual partner. I had never done any type of woodwork before. We were all talking about it. We all said, okay, this is the child who's been affected by abuse. And it was in a way, it was sort of upsetting for us because it was reality, and reality can be harsh. Children in particular keep silent about molestation. Women in marriages who are being beaten by their spouses keep silent oftentimes because they feel, oh, I don't want to break up the family, I don't want to break up the marriage, I have children to think about. Women keep silent about little things that could happen at work or at school. You know, they don't want to lose their job if their boss harasses them, so they won't say anything. It can be any kind of harassment. It can be catcalls, it can be gestures, it can be, oh, he whistled at me. It doesn't mean anything. If you're uncomfortable with it, it obviously does mean something. We don't want the silent voices to be silent anymore. What we want to do is make everyone who is affected by any sort of harassment, children, women, to speak out. I think it's very important for them to speak out. If people can see something, statues, it gives them a sense of knowledge. They know what they're learning about. I've never dealt with any of these issues personally, but I might have to one day, and now I know what to do with it. I know not to keep silent. I know that's the worst possible thing anyone can do is stay silent. That's what the perpetrator wants you to do. They don't want to be caught. Obviously, they don't want to be caught, and they'll do many things. They'll threaten your life just to keep you silent. But you have to trust that people will help you if you come out. Never be afraid. Talk about it. You have to let somebody know. You can't keep silent.
I'm not angry because I'm deaf. Never think that. I'm angered because I was given barriers that I could overcome. But people didn't want to give that opportunity. I need options. I don't need barriers.
Joanne Cripps likes to break down barriers.
Hi! What a thrilling event, eh? We're making history. We've got Newfoundland here, we've got BC with us.
And today, she's just broken another one.
This is a first of its kind across Canada that we're able to include all the schools for the deaf. And we're doing a videotape and book launch called River of Hands. The book and videotape are written stories by deaf children and adults.
Stories by deaf people for deaf people to make deaf children proud of their language and culture. A language and culture Joanne never knew as a little girl.
I had a family that didn't sign because of the educational system at that time. You know, they discouraged it because they thought I wouldn't learn to use my voice, and so they followed the experts.
The experts followed Alexander Graham Bell's oral approach. The theory was that deaf people could be taught to talk if intervention happened early. One way to encourage speech was not to use sign language.
I felt as though there was a glass partition separating me from my family. I could see what they were doing, but we couldn't communicate. and it was just a one-way street. I wanted to respond to them, but I didn't have the means because I didn't have language. It was very frustrating for me, and I was always angry.
At age 5, Joanne, like many deaf children, left home for a residential school.
I was very unsure about what to expect. I knew my family, and I knew what that looked like. But did I know that there were other deaf children? No, I didn't. And so, those around me, I found to be the same as I am. We used to have 30 kids in one room in a dormitory-style bedroom.
I was lying on my bed, and there was the next bed over had Joanne. And what we did at night was I was signing to myself at bedtime, and everyone else was looking at me, and I was just telling creative stories that I'd seen from television, war movies. I talked about the airplanes, fighter pilots, and people were mesmerized.
Helen had deaf parents, came from a deaf family, had a very strong background in storytelling. And she was the one that started to show us how to tell stories. And I looked at it, and I felt there's a difference here, because I was visual, I could see, and I didn't feel as though there was a glass partition.
But that feeling changed when Joanne went to class.
Within the classroom, we were expected to lip read the teacher along with some assisted works on the blackboard. And if we didn't understand it, then, you'd sort of wait, or you would alert the kid next to you what was being said if you caught it. But if you were caught doing that, you'd be punished, and you would have to do the lines. I must not sign in class. It'd be 500 lines of that. I talked, and people gave me a lot of praise. I felt like a dog in training, actually. And I'm profoundly deaf. So people think that I can speak, so they put me in front of the audience at open house, and look at Joanne, look how she can be successful. Her teacher has taught her to speak so well.
At age 12, Joanne flew home to visit her family and show them just how well she'd been trained.
My father was taking pictures of me in the airport, and I yelled at my dad, "Dad, to stop." "Dad, to stop" is what I said. Did I understand what that meant? Not really. And when my mother heard that I could speak those 3 words, she cried. She was very overwhelmed from that, but for me it felt like nothing, because it meant nothing to me, because I didn't have the interaction.
She would say something and we wouldn't really pay attention to what she was saying, and then she would go, "What did I say?" And if you couldn't answer her back, you'd be in big trouble, because she'd get even more mad.
After graduation, Joanne applied to be a counselor at her school's residence.
I remember this, sitting at the interview table and interviewed by 3 people, the dean of residence, the supervisor of the dorm, and the property manager. And they asked me questions, and they spoke to me. There wasn't any signing going on here, so I had to reply using spoken English.
Joanne got the job, but soon after, she met a man at a workshop who believed that talking was not the best way for deaf people to communicate.
Dr. Holcomb came forward with his microphone and spoke, but made sure that no one could hear him. And then the interpreter came out, and I was surprised there was an interpreter there. And I felt at that time, if you brought an interpreter, that meant that you were weak. That meant you couldn't be on par with hearing people. And I didn't realize that that was access. And he said to the audience, "This is what deaf people go through. This is why we use an interpreter." And I thought, there's my language in front of me. I can see it. So I came here and began work on a probationary period. Passed that term, knew I was safe, and then started to lobby for change. Interpreter services, children having the right to sign.
But Joanne's lobbying changed when her sister called and said she wanted to be a sign language interpreter.
And I was worried about that, because that meant that my family would be involved with me, and I felt that impossible because it had never been the case. I'd been alone so long in my family, and I felt that that was where my rights laid. And also, I have a very well-known reputation in the community, and I was worried that I would be judged on the basis of my sister's ability to be an interpreter.
After Mossy learned sign language, she got a job as a counselor at Joanne's school.
My sister would tell me the family secrets, if you will. And I felt at the time it was my business, but at the same time, yes, it is my business. It's my family. And so she's the one that drew us closer and closer together.
But there was one thing that still prevented Joanne from getting close to her family.
I felt cheated in my younger years. And I have very high expectations of my family. You know, you want me to use my voice and I want you to sign. And arguments would ensue over a communication issue. I just sort of threw all my baggage and garbage into the book. I showed it to my older sister and she said, do it. It's from that point on that I felt the anger that I'd been holding on to diminished because the information that I felt was in the book. My mother and sister accepted responsibility for what had gone on.
10 years and 5 editors later, Joanne completed her book. It's a guide for parents of deaf children. Now she set her sights on a book and video for deaf children themselves.
We thought we would have a contest, and it was called the Canadian Deaf Heritage Contest at that time. We asked for submissions throughout Canada, found our winners, and then called upon renowned authors and mentored the winners. And they were very supportive of it. Do you see the river of hands? Now, I think people over in British Columbia have a question they want to ask. What skills do you need to be a good writer? First, you need to have a look around you and just be creative. When I look back at my childhood, I think, now I'm free. I feel whole, I have family support, I use my language, I work in the deaf community, I can participate in the hearing community. You have anger, use it in a positive manner. Use that as a strategy because you'll see success. My work has been about getting rid of the barriers, and this project gives me the strength to feel good, to show that it can be done. Okay, see you later!
They were exposed to direct trauma. They also witnessed murder, killing, beatings, all of kinds of extreme traumatic situation. Oh, Canada, our native land, true patriot love.
Here in Toronto, children from Kosovo are getting some special help.
She's dead. Oh, okay.
All summer, they've been coming to the Canadian Centre for Victims of Torture. For 3 hours a day, they play, have art therapy, and get a sympathetic ear. Most of these children are from Kosovo. A couple are from Iran.
Marlita, give this every day to her 3 times a day. Okay.
When we encountered these children, we could see different signs of reactions to the stress and trauma that they went through. A lot of anxiety, a lot of fears, signs of depression. These children were like shy, withdrawn, and they isolated themselves.
For the past 2 months, they've been spending their mornings here, while their parents and older siblings have been learning English next door.
Take 5 minutes to write 5 things you do every day.
The idea was that these children are going to feel protected and safe, especially if they have their parents around, sitting in the next room, studying English.
What may be the most important part of the program happens after snack time. Afsani Shafai is an art therapist.
We gave children art supplies. We set the environment very safe and trusting way, and we just let them be. At the very beginning, these children were expressing a lot of issues to do with what they had gone through back home, a lot of war-related themes. There were a lot of anxiety, paintings of dead bodies, houses in fire, their children getting killed in front of their eyes. So they came here with that experience. But as they get rid of those overwhelming feelings through art, then things ease off, and we'll just see what happens today.
In the beginning, some of the children didn't want to play. They didn't have any interest in playing or communicate to each other. They were just sitting and not doing anything. They changed in very positive directions. They expressed their feelings. They made friends. They tried to help each other.
Art is a non-verbal way of expressing feelings. It's very important for feelings to be externalized, especially the traumas, because most of the times it's very difficult to use words to express what one has felt. We tend to deny the feelings, we tend to put them away. As they felt, they're listened to, their feelings are acknowledged, what they had gone through. Things started looking brighter. The horrific images started changing into happy feelings. That little boy, so far, any work he did not like it. So this usually means he's not feeling good about himself. But today, it seems like, very patiently work on his piece.
CN Tower and Sky Dome. Sky Dome. Have you visited CN Tower and Sky Dome? Have you seen it? Yes. And did you like it?
Yes.
Yes. Do you like Toronto?
Yes.
Yes. Good.
Here in Toronto, it's very nice, but I should be back in my country, in Kosovo. What was happening in Kosovo was wrong, but still, it happened.
They just came to Canada and they need a lot of support. They're facing new kind of stress. They're starting schools, they're learning new language. What is the focus of our program is to provide these children with an opportunity to feel safe and protected. And I realized it's going to take a long time for emotional healing.
HIV positive. It's funny how a three-letter acronym can make everything you've accomplished look like shit. When my doctor said
what you're watching is part of a play called Sound of Silence.
I'm nobody. I have a big fucking label on my forehead. I'm HIV positive.
It's the first big production for this cast of high school drama students. After 8 months of hard work, their first big break.
We struggled a lot. Obviously, there were a lot of frustrating rehearsals where we'd go and we got into little arguments with each other. But that's expected, This was the major thing on our mind because we committed to it and we stuck to it.
When you die is when you're in the most respect, no matter what the fuck you did before that.
That perseverance got them here, a coveted spot on stage in a real theater, in front of a paying audience, in one of North America's most competitive markets.
If we can do this, I really feel we can do anything. Because starting from zero, going over all of the little things that everyone looks over to put on a show.
2 years ago, it was something they could only dream about. 2 years ago, Travis Legal hadn't given much thought to AIDS. but his outlook changed on a school trip.
It was the first day that this was actually a concern for me, you know, like this was the first day that it came to me as being something that is a large part of everybody's lives, like something that we should be concerned about and should be aware of.
The names, hundreds of them, a tragedy that all at once became all too clear.
When we actually saw this woman come through and she just stood there and she put down a candle and she lit it. And I just watched her as she was just standing there reading over the names and things, and I was wondering who on that list, that she might have known or that might have been a friend to her, and how many people on that list actually lived in this community.
The names etched on the monument were now etched in his mind.
They've obviously gone through a lot of hard times, whether it's dealing with the problem themselves or other people having to deal with it. Like, I basically saw the struggle that these people had.
When my doctor sat me down and told me that, you want to know what my reaction was? Right. And next comes the part when I find out I'm really the son of a homeless woman who left me on the doorstep of my parents' house. And my girlfriend's pregnant with another man's baby. And suddenly, I realize the true spirit of life and become a kind, warm-hearted human being who enlightens everyone around him. Only that's not what happens next. What really happens is I go home and I lie to my girlfriend and I tell her that everything's okay. And I lie to my friends right before I tell them to straighten up their lives.
I thought it was really effective just in the way that he dealt with it, because it wasn't about the disease like I think a lot of things are. It was more about what you do once you find out.
When I put myself in this situation, I thought of it like, oh my God, how do I tell them? How would I tell them? I can't. You know what I mean? And it's, who do you trust? Who could actually help you? Nobody can make the situation go away. That was something that I thought of, and I said, well, you know what? This needs to be shown on stage.
So Trevis got the ball rolling. He wrote a one-act play about a teenager who's HIV positive.
When I go into the doctor's office, HIV positive, please come in. HIV positive, please stick out your arm. I'm not a person anymore, I'm a goddamn disease.
After reading the one act, we all agreed, all of us, that it was good, but it was way too short. Like, it went from beginning to end. Like, there was no build-up. The characters themselves were very, very defined. Like, they all were really good. And, you know what I mean? There was just so much not said, and then we just kind of brainstormed one night.
And kept brainstorming until the one-act play was a full-blown production, one that tackles some very charged issues.
I want to know why the only thing you ever talk to is that fucking bottle of yours.
A lot of it is based on miscommunication and how these close friends aren't so close. Like, everyone has these sides and everyone has things they don't say. And that comes out because every character in the script has a moment when they should say something but they just don't.
Hi, so everyone, get into costume backstage.
The cast wanted to take their work to a theater festival last summer, but didn't make the draw. That didn't stop them, though. They kept hunting for a venue. In the end, their stubbornness paid off. They scored a 5-night run at the Poor Alex Theater.
I think it's pretty incredible. It all kind of seems surreal, like there's been so much build up to it and so much rehearsing and thinking and planning, and then it's like even once the script was written there was so much other things that still had to be done, that, you know what I mean, and all the extra stress, and now that we're actually up and doing it, it's such a good feeling to know that it's there.
As for Trevis, he hopes Sound of Silence helps break the silence around an issue which can be too easy to overlook.
Just wasn't supposed to be this way. It was supposed to be like a pleasant surprise, where God comes to you at random and he says, you, yes you, you're coming with me. And you, and you're also coming with me. Instead, he came up to me and said, congratulations. This is your life.
I basically want this play to be like an awakening for some people, you know, like just like a loud siren telling people to wake up and, you know, smell the coffee and realize that there are bigger problems than we think there are, like, going on around us every day.
Problems that hit home for one teenager on a class trip, when his world expanded far beyond the walls of youth.
So they're very good mothers. Somebody. อันนี้มาจากไหนคนนี้มาจากไหนคนนี้มาจากลำพูนได้ไม่ทอดจริงใช่ไหมเป็นใครคนที่ตำรวจส่งเลยค่ะแต่ไม่รู้อยู่ที่ไหนใช่ไหม This baby was found by the police and it was brought in so they don't know how old the baby is but the umbilical cord was still just freshly cut so they don't know if the baby's HIV so you would call this a baby high risk.
This government orphanage in northern Thailand has 150 babies and nearly 500 older children. In a country where even healthy babies are abandoned, babies infected with HIV have even fewer chances. At least they did until Avis Rideout came along.
Yeah, they're going to wait for his umbilical cord to come off and then they're going to give him to me.
She takes the babies to Agape, the home she founded for babies with AIDS. At Agape, Avis's team of nannies are worried about 4-month-old Whit. He's got symptoms that are all too familiar.
He's very sick. Whit is really sick. He's losing weight since he came with us. And we know for sure that he's got the virus. He hasn't got a chance. He's not going to survive.
Agape is Greek for unconditional love. And that's the strongest medicine Avis and her team can give.
I think that's what's important in this case, that they have an opportunity to be loved. Love is our key. You know, when he came, we thought he was going to make it. Just looking at him, he looked well. He was the weight for his age, and but then within a week, the cough came. He'd had this cough for a month now. Little guy. Oh, yeah. He's kind of sick. No. What's he want? Are you want me? Are you want me? Oh, we've had 46 have come to the Agape home. 16 have died since we have started, which is the most difficult part. Our first 6 months, we've had 5 die within the span of 3 weeks. 5 funerals.
Avis is Canadian. She hails from Newfoundland and came to Thailand as a missionary. But it was while she was working as a volunteer at the government orphanage in Chiang Mai that she found Nikki. The 2-year-old already had symptoms of AIDS.
She had a big sort of a tumor on the side of her face. She had the bloated stomach. Just wasn't very nice looking at all. But for some reason, my wife just felt a kind of empathy, feeling towards her, and wanted to bring her home to look after her.
She had suffered a lot in the hospital prior to that, and if you look at her hospital chart, the doctor has written many times, just let her die, release her and let her die. But I believe that God already then had done something in my heart when I saw Nikki, the first seed that he gave me. I made a promise. If he would give me Nikki, that I would open a home for babies that were rejected, left anywhere, abandoned in hospitals. No one didn't want to look after them. I would bring them in and love them. If it meant for 1 day or 10 days or 10 months, I promised God if he gave me one seed that I would plant that seed, and you can see the results of the Agape home right now.
Avis adopted Nikki. It wasn't easy. She had to get around the law in Thailand which bans the adoption of children with AIDS. And she had to deal with her own family's fear.
First, I was a little bit afraid that I would get HIV/AIDS. The only way you could catch it is 2. If you have a cut and they have a cut and the blood gets mixed, and then you could catch it that way.
We were very cautious about Nikki in the beginning. We had rubber gloves and things like this, but now, I mean, like, that wore off very quickly because none of us were really worried about it.
And now Nikki is 5 years old. Kids in Thailand with AIDS at 5 years old, they die by the time they're 5, or they're symptomatic for 2 or 3 years before they die. But she has no symptoms at all. Nikki is perfectly healthy. Why? I don't know. And I haven't used any medicine, and she hasn't been to a doctor.
Avis made good on her promise. She and husband Roy raised funds. They went to government, corporate and private sources in Thailand and Canada so they could open the Agape Home.
Whatever she wants to do, usually it'll get done. My wife is that type of person and very strong in her convictions. And if she is convinced that something is meant to be, if this is what God is leading her to do, then she's not going to stop for anybody or anything. My role is probably more of a supportive role. I do the finances, the accounting, the bank, working on proposals, that sort of thing.
Well, when the babies come in, they're all HIV positive, okay? Everyone is tested HIV positive. And then after 6 months, we do a blood test, and they still may be HIV positive. Then about 10 months, we do another one.
What Avis is hoping for is the mysterious reversal that sometimes happens to babies born HIV positive.
Well, not all babies born HIV positive stay HIV positive. 70% of them will turn negative. When a baby's born, he's born with the mother's antibodies. And if they get the right nurturing when they're younger, they have the strength, they'll fight the mother's antibodies off as they get their own.
Right now, we have about 8 out of the 20 that's HIV negative. And we're getting those babies ready for adoption.
Today, Avis gets a call from Vien Ping Babies Home to come and collect a 10-day-old infant.
The mom is HIV positive, and she's not married. I don't know where the father is. She's got symptoms of AIDS already, and she has no one to take care of her. She's a Hill Tribe lady. Very poor and mentally handicapped. Not a lot, but some for sure. So I asked her why was she pregnant, and she said her father sold her into prostitution. But the baby looks good. It's 10 days old. You know, to look at babies like this, we think, well, maybe they're going to make it. But you can never tell by looking at them.
Does she have to say goodbye to her baby now?
No, we're going to take her to the home so she can see where the baby's going to be. We always want to keep contact, and if something happens to the baby, then we will contact them as well, if the mother is still alive. And usually the mothers are not alive. If we had the space, we would have taken the mom. We want the Thais to take care of their own children. That's why the future that I'm focusing on, the mom staying with the baby until the mom would die or until the baby would die. And that's another burden in my heart that I really want to take care of.
Avis wants to build a medical unit, a school for HIV-infected kids, a larger nursery, and housing for mums with AIDS and their babies. That'll cost $800,000. But future plans don't help mums like this one. Another mum, whose baby has recently died of AIDS, has come to Agape looking for help.
No one that don't want her because she's got AIDS. And she's out there crying and feels that she's not going to live much longer. So I told her I'm going to give her some more money to go back to the hospital, get a chest x-ray to make sure. But what do I do with them all? I don't know what to do. There's that many that need to be held, and needs to be comforted, and needs to be loved. I feel that my love, I don't know, it's not running out, but my time. I think my time is running out, and because there's so many things to do.
I don't foresee the need getting any less.
I don't know. Tell the people I need money. I don't need it for myself. I don't want any. No, I got them in an envelope. Yesterday I opened a card, and it came from someone that visited the Agape Home last February. That's a long time. And a doctor that was visiting here. So he sent this in the mail. He said, give it to your staff. Give it to the people that's working here. So this morning this lady's coming in a dire need. I need 500 baht. So in this was 590 baht. I'm going to give it to her just like that. I'm going to give it all to her. I'm going to tell her it's a gift from someone in Australia that we just received yesterday. God meets every need. I think it's pretty neat, don't you? I'm going to give it to her just like that. No one. He was from Australia. Okay? Okay?
Several of the nannies at Agape have AIDS too.
She wasn't positive when she had her first child, but then her husband started to work in the city and he started to go to brothels, and so she got it as a result of her husband having it first. Her son came to stay at the Agape home, and she feels like she's got a bond with the place because her son was here and she loves the other children like her son.
Her baby died at the age of 9 months.
They're the ones that can really relate to our babies. They're the ones that can sit on a mat and hold that baby and knowing that baby has the same diseases they got. They know maybe there's no future for that baby. They may not have many more months to live, but what love they have, they can pour it out into those little lives.
Working alongside the nannies are volunteers from all over the world. Some come for a few weeks, some for months. Canadian Kim Warren is visiting Agape after teaching English in southern Thailand.
Her mother is mentally handicapped quite a bit. I've met both the parents, the mother and the father. The father is also mentally handicapped. The prognosis for her was that she would probably be mentally handicapped herself. And my background is special education, so I've spent one-on-one. Avis gave me permission just to work solely with her. In the little over a month I've been here, she can now sit up by herself for up to about 10 minutes at a time now. I have to put her in that position. And she can walk forward steps. There, the girl. See, she's just learning the momentum of forward steps. And she's got the left to the right, which is really good. So, yeah, good girl. Good girl. Yeah. She was positive when she was born. She's negative. Tested her at a year, and she's negative now. So the hard part in Thailand is for a lot of mentally handicapped, the women end up being raped. And that's a reality that can happen in her life. And that's where and why I'm hoping to stay with her and work with her.
M is doing well, but Whit isn't responding to treatment or to love. He's getting worse.
He's in a really critical condition, and because he's like that when he's this little, that there's no chance that he'll survive, that he'll just keep getting worse from now on.
Meanwhile, the mother of the baby Avis picked up from the orphanage has been placed in a hospice, but she's changed her mind and wants her baby back. But with her limited mental capacity, she doesn't understand that she has AIDS. After a lot of frantic phone calls, it's decided the other HIV women at the hospice will help her take care of the baby. So it's back to Agape to pick up the infant.
Going to go back with his mom and going to receive lots of love and good care with the help of other people. And I think it's the best, and that's why I want to get a place as soon as I can for moms like this, so I can take them in and can stay with their babies.
Other babies leave Agape through adoption. This couple from Germany are the proud new parents of twin boys. They were born HIV positive, but now test negative. Most Thai families are fearful of AIDS and are hesitant to adopt a child who has been HIV infected. Babies from Agape are mostly adopted into foreign families.
This little boy has a family coming over in January to foster him. He'll be going to France, and this little boy is also spoken for.
What started as a rescue mission for Nikki has turned into a place of refuge for many. Nikki has long passed the point when it's possible to throw off the virus. She'll be HIV positive for the rest of her life. But no matter how long or short that life is, the work will continue in her name.
Today, Nikki's name is all over the world. Many, many, many countries. Her name is known as Nikki's seed, a seed that's been planted, and now that we believe it's a seed that God had ordained to be spread around the world.
In the few weeks since these stories were filmed, Whit has died. This mother has also died. This mother and her newborn are doing well at the House of Love Hospice. And Nikki is thriving.